The United States is increasingly being accused of running low on modern weapons and being forced to lean on outdated systems just to keep the war effort going. Donald Trump has moved to extend the deployment of the aging A-10 Warthog attack jet, prompting questions over whether the US is getting desperate to fill gaps in its air power. The Warthog will now remain in service for 4 more years, despite criticism that it struggled and even took losses in the recent fighting against Iran. If there is a second round of war, the US may be forced to rely heavily on older weapons, from attack planes to aging missiles, because stocks of newer systems have been heavily depleted. The US Air Force has officially extended the life of its aging A-10 Warthog attack plane just as tensions with Iran remain dangerously high. Under the new plan, the A-10 fleet will stay in service until 2030, pushing back an earlier retirement deadline that had been set for 2026. The A-10 first flew in 1976, making it a Cold War veteran that has been on the Pentagon's chopping block for more than 20 years. Within the US Air Force, critics have long argued that the Warthog is simply too old, too slow, and too expensive to maintain in an era of stealth jets and hypersonic weapons. Retiring the A-10, advocates of modernization insist, would free up significant funds for developing hypersonic weapons and other cutting-edge systems. On the other side, critics of retirement warned that scrapping the Warthog without a true replacement would leave ground troops without reliable close air support. At the same time, officials have cautioned that keeping the Warthog fleet running puts extra strain on maintenance units and supply chains needed for newer aircraft. During the recent war with Iran, A-10s were deployed for close air support missions, using their powerful nose-mounted cannons against Iranian boats and positions. Notably, Iranian fire reportedly struck at least one US A-10 during the conflict, forcing the pilot to eject and leaving the aircraft destroyed after crashing in Kuwait. The A-10 was not the only casualty. Reports indicate the US also lost advanced F-35s, F-15E strike fighters, KC-135 tankers and C-130 transports in the Iran war. All of this is happening just as the US faces mounting shortages of key weapons and munitions after months of high-intensity combat. According to reporting cited by the Wall Street Journal, the Pentagon is now pushing major US automakers to pivot into weapons production. The US War Department is said to be in talks with household names like Ford and General Motors, exploring how their assembly lines can be adapted for war. Officials are exploring whether auto factories can be retooled to produce missiles, loitering munitions, and other tactical hardware at scale. Analysts warn that the US is facing a worsening shortage of critical missiles such as THAAD interceptors, PRSM and ATACMS tactical missiles, and Tomahawk cruise missiles. By late March, some reports estimated that the US had less than a month's worth of THAAD and PRSM missiles left at current rates of fire. A UK think tank went further, projecting that the US would effectively run out of THAAD interceptors by April 17th, and exhaust its PRSM and ATACMS stocks even earlier, by April 12th. By the end of March, reports suggested that the US had already fired roughly a quarter of its entire Tomahawk missile inventory in the Iran conflict. Amid worsening tensions between Iran and the US, the Iranian president spoke to Pakistan's prime minister, holding a phone call with Shahbaz Sharif on April 19th as the crisis deepened. Speaking to Sharif, President Masoud Pezeshkian accused the US of bullying and unreasonable behavior, directly blaming Washington's conduct during negotiations and the ceasefire. US actions increased suspicion that it will betray diplomacy, Pezeshkian told Sharif, according to the Associated Press, saying recent moves raised doubts about America's intentions, positioning Islamabad again as a mediator despite the growing mistrust. Trump had said that talks with Iran on extending the ceasefire would resume on April 21st, indicating that a new round of negotiations was planned before the truce expired. Trump told Fox News that Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff will be heading to Islamabad for negotiations soon, naming his envoys who would lead the next phase of discussions. If Tehran does not agree to a deal, the whole of Iran would be blown up, Trump warned, issuing a stark threat while talking about the stakes of the ceasefire talks. However, Iran indicated that it was not planning to send a delegation for the talks, signaling that it would not join the proposed second round in Islamabad. There are currently no plans to participate in the next round of Iran-US talks, Iranian media reported, quoting officials who said Tehran had rejected further peace talks for now. The ongoing ceasefire is set to expire on April 21st if an extension is not agreed upon, raising fears that fighting could resume once the current 2-week truce runs out.